Do I think that Stephen King is a perfect writer? Absolutely not. But I do get these comments from time to time like that says, I just couldn't get into Stephen King because he can't write anything except monsters and blood and guts and violence, right? All I have to say to that is that's a bunch of cockadoodie, you dirty birdies. Writers remember everything, especially the hurts. Strip a writer to the buff and point to the scars, and he'll tell you the story of every small one. A little talent is a nice thing to have if you want to be a writer, but the only real equipment is the ability to remember the story of every scar. He had discovered that there was not just one God, but many, and some were more than cruel. They were insane, and that changed all. Cruelty, after all, was understandable. With insanity, however, there was no arguing. The shuddering would not stop, and the pain was like the end of the world. But there's a point when the very discussion of pain becomes redundant. No one knows there is pain the size of this in the world. No one. It's like being possessed by demons. That was the lesson of the dream, which was really a memory. The pain only appeared to come and go. The pain was like the piling, sometimes covered and sometimes invisible, but always there. A brave man could faint, a coward couldn't. Art consists of the persistence of memory, and I'm your #1 fan. Hey, what's up, bookworms and dirty birdies? Mike back again to talk a little Stephen King as we go back into the multiverse for his 15th published novel. And this, of course, is Misery. 15th published novel under his own name. I'll be doing Richard Bachman stuff later. But this book right here, Misery, is one of the ones where he crossed over into the mainstream. He was really riding high in 1987 off the success of the year before. So this was a time where he was beyond a household name. He already kind of was, but then this book came out and it kind of showed a different side of King. It said that it was influenced by fan reaction to Eyes of the Dragon. Now, I talked about Eyes of the Dragon right here and why I thought it was a really charming book. But the thing was, a lot of Stephen King fans did not like it. He wrote that for his daughter, and I thought it was a really charming tale. Like I said, I can understand why some people didn't like it, but apparently, he got a lot of negative feedback on it in a way that he wasn't really ready to deal with, I think, at that point in his life. It wasn't just because he couldn't take criticism, I don't think, but it was basically people telling him, stay in your lane, you need to stick to horror, buddy, and things like that. And he felt like, as a literary creator, why do I have to do that? Where's the rule that says I'm only allowed to write about horror? And I think that's why it really changed his direction from actually just, scary, creepy monsters to psychological horror and thrillers before moving on to multiple genres like he has today. But a lot of criticism before this has said that he could only write books with, supernatural, scary monsters and sex and violence and things like that. So we said, okay, check this out. Now, I read this book for the first time when I was 15. The same story that I have with most of these, so I won't repeat that. That's how I became a constant reader. Read almost all of them that were available at the time when I was 15 years old in 1993, and Misery was no different. Now, for me with Misery, I don't want to talk about the movie, but I don't want to gloss over it either, because I know most people, if they haven't read the book, they've seen the movie. It's probably one of his most popular adaptations, along with Shawshank Redemption, obviously, because it's won an Academy Award. So it's a very, very popular movie, and it's a very good movie. And I'm definitely not taking away from that performance whatsoever. It's a fantastic performance. I'm just saying the first time I read it, I didn't have to picture, that actress in my head. I don't know why I said that actress, because I can't think of her name right now. Kathy Bates, yeah. But for me, reading it again when I was 40, with kids, I usually tell this story about how it will hit me differently as an adult. This one, not so much. There wasn't really any kid stuff that would have really affected me as a parent in this one. So just as horrific as it was then, just as tense of a read as it was before, but again, it didn't really hit me any differently than I did when I was 15. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something I kind of like to gauge. But let's do like we always do, guys. Let's get into what is it about, in case you are the last person in the world who's never heard of Stephen King's Misery. Now, Paul Sheldon is a best-selling novelist who has finally met his #1 fan. Her name is Annie Wilkes, and she is more than just a rabid reader. She is Paul's nurse. She is tending to his shattered body after he's in an automobile accident, but she is also furious that the author has killed off her favorite character in his latest book. Annie becomes his captor, keeping him prisoner in her isolated home. Annie wants Paul to write a book that brings her favorite character back to life, just for her. She has a lot of ways to spur him on. One is a needle, and another is an axe. And if they don't work, well, then she can finally go ahead and get a little nasty with him. And guys, that takes us to Misery, 1987. When it comes to talking about the good and bad with this book, the thing that comes up the most for me in the good is this is something that everyone who likes to throw out the term, oh, it's just a toxic fandom, they need to read this book and see what a real toxic fandom is. Someone saying I didn't like a Star Wars movie is not a toxic fandom. Someone who is so upset in a creative decision that you made that they kidnap you, hold you hostage, and inflict physical damage on you, that is a toxic fan. So I think that it's really good defining characteristic of what that term actually means, because I see that term thrown out a lot, and I'm like, I don't think you guys really know what it means anymore. You guys are just kind of using it as a buzz phrase, but yeah, it's one that's really, it shines a bright light on that. And it shines a bright light on mental illness. This is something he started with Dark Tower. This is something he started in different seasons, kind of just taking note of people with a mental illness. And I think with this one, we look at what? A bipolar disorder, personality disorder, schizoid, obsessive compulsive, sadomasochism. I mean, Annie is quite the mixed bag on these things. And none are stronger than the others. They're just all right there. And they're all just kind of working at the same time. And I don't think, a lot of people say, well, yeah, but they're shining those things in a negative light. Well, I mean, look, if you're going to go into it with that attitude, then yeah, you're probably going to think that. To me, making it representative in his stories, to me, it's no different than if the protagonist has these things. It's just something, I feel like it's, people were scared to talk about these things still in the 1980s. And I felt like him actually bringing them out in his characters got discussion started, not just necessarily that, oh, well, yeah, it shined him in a negative light. They're very real serious issues that people needed to talk about and people needed to deal with. And if this is the way to do it, then I think that was a very good move on his behalf to do that. But I think what this book achieved the best for me is it got across what he was trying to get across when he wrote it. And that is that, yeah, there can be real scary supernatural monsters, but people are the real monsters. The damage that humans inflict on other humans, those are the real monsters in his stories. And, you know, yeah, sure, you might have been distracted by a 7-foot-tall clown with razor-sharp teeth in it. So you might not have noticed that the human characters in that, Tom, Henry Bowers, these were just awful, awful human beings. And I think so that's why he kind of wanted to up the ante here and be like, look, yeah, a shape-shifting intergalactic space spiders, yeah, sure, you might not be able to relate to that. Someone with mental illness that is chopping up a human being, yeah, that's something very real. And that's what makes Annie Wilkes such a compelling villain, is that she's so real. This is absolutely could be someone that you know. It could be someone that works with you. It very much could be someone that you know in real life, kind of thing. That's what makes her such an awesome villain, and easily one of his best. An obsessive, compulsive, toxic fan very much could exist, and they very much do exist, I'm sure. I just hope that this doesn't happen to anyone out there, because it's a terrifying idea, and that's what makes this book so visceral to me. I love it. But the tension in this, next level. And I felt like this is where King first started making his transition from scaring you with the creatures and the jump scares and stuff like that, and scaring you with the tension of making you uncomfortable. Things that you understand what's coming. You can see that train coming and you're deer in the headlights. You can't move. You're gripping your armchair. It's that thing where you can see it and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Train wreck in slow motion. And this is when he first started doing that. And that is what has become my favorite type of horror, is the horror that you can see right in front of you. Nothing you can do about it. You just gotta take it. You gotta hope to contain it, kind of thing. And yeah, but with the tension in this is so real that I found myself holding my breath numerous times. But it's really, to me, the journey that Paul goes on, not just physical pain, but emotional. I mean, the despair that you think you would feel in this situation, the hopelessness, the willingness to give up, to just say, F it. I'm gonna save all these pain pills and I'm gonna kill myself or something like that. I'm gonna do whatever I can, or maybe if I can get out of this bed, I'm just gonna slice my wrist. So it's one of those things that make this a great story of perseverance, overcoming impossible odds, just holding on to your sanity. Because this would drive anybody insane, what Paul is going through in this book. And it's just it has one of the most horrific scenes I think he's ever written. I know I said that this is one he upped the things without having to use like big scary monsters or sex and violence. Look, it's a very violent event, but it's something you understand what's coming. You as the reader know what is about to happen. And he's pleading with her not to do this, and you're just pleading as the reader, please don't do this, And again, it's coming. You know that her mind's made up. You can't do anything about it. And guys, it's way more brutal. It's different. It's different than the movie is. I don't want to say it's way more brutal, because somehow in the movie it's quite horrifying as well. Even if it's not quite as graphic, it somehow is. I can't explain it. It's such a scene in it. But yeah, it's different in the book, but it has the same impact for sure. But let's talk about a couple of the bad things here. I think Annie's outbursts, sometimes they can go from, wow, this woman has a problem, to being kind of a bit cartoonish. Kind of like what I said with Odetta when I was talking about my the Drawing of the Three review. And some of the terminology she can use, some choice words, like I said, like a cockadoodie, like a dirty birdie, things like that. You can just be like shaking your head thinking this is like a Looney Tunes cartoon. If that bothers you a bit, you just got to understand she doesn't like bad language, and and women from her generation might have used different slang back then when you're trying not to swear. But yeah, it's almost like a childish kind of humor. But again, the woman has very clear mental issues. So if that's something that's really bothering you, I mean, I don't know. It's to me, I actually kind of think it's funny, and I have a good time with it. But I can see that bothering some people for sure. And there are a couple of times where there's some kills that Annie makes that might seem a bit over the top and kind of ridiculous. There's one in particular where it was just like, that's almost absurd, King. What are you thinking there? But again, nothing that ever really spoils the story. But I can see a couple of those things being what drags it down. But overall, very, very strong book that you're not going to find a ton of things to criticize about it. So let's bring it to why you should read it, guys. I mean, just to me, like I said, I think this is really just good for people to see what toxic fandom is really like. It isn't because someone made a mean tweet. It really is someone inflicting physical pain or holding someone against their will, making them perform a task that they don't want to do just for you, making them work for free, right? But yeah, it's what she does mentally to Paul is just something that, like I said, people need to see what real emotional abuse is. And like I said, it isn't just saying mean things online. This will really show you the kind of threats that I feel like he probably felt like he was under at the time. Because I'm just a dude with Wi-Fi, and I get all kinds of nasty messages and threats on my comments. So, I mean, I can only imagine someone that's a superstar like that, like I said, that everyone in the world knew at the time, and was mad at him for writing a children's fantasy book in between It and Misery. So, I can see why it really bothered him. And you can tell that he had a clear axe to grind on this. He had an axe to grind against those really, really just harsh fans. And he had an axe to grind against some of his harshest critics. And he does it well. He does it really well here. Usually I'm against stuff like that, but I get where he was coming from. I mean, it's very clear he wrote himself into the story, and a lot of the things that he references are people who have said some of these things to him. And like I said, he did a good job. I mean, you can see, look, that is all kinds of salt right there. Right? The dude was not thrilled with what people were saying about him at the time. But again, I think this might be the best like held hostage, held against their will kind of story that I think I've ever read. And I think that there's plenty there that you'll find that you enjoy too. Even if you've seen the movie, you're going to enjoy this because it's different, just different. It's a really good adaptation. Don't misunderstand me. But I think that this will be the director's cut, if you will. I think you'd really enjoy it if you like the movie. You'll really enjoy the book just a bit more, I think. And that brings me kind of to my final thoughts here. I think it's unique that King was able to write us a story where the protagonist is incapacitated. You know, he's not going to be a man of action. Obviously, he's so doped up and in pain. He's not obviously going to be the smartest man in the room either. You know, so it's kind of a put him in a corner here and said, let's see how we can get him out. And it isn't just King being masochistic and just torturing this poor character. It isn't like that. I really appreciate where he was coming from with this because it just showed that even when there's no supernatural power to deal with, there still are quite a few monsters out there to deal with. Monsters are real, and they are people, right? Like I said, I think it's just an outstanding story of never giving up hope, always just trying to persevere, just trying to last. One more day kind of thing. One more day. Let's just keep this worry about making it to tomorrow. So it's a really good hope. A message of hope, I say, and I think that you'll find plenty to enjoy, just as I have. Now, guys, next month you'll want to stick around because whenever I get accused of, well, you love every Stephen King book. No. Did you watch the Talisman review? You'll want to watch the review in April because then it's going to be late night, and the night before, Tommy Knocker's knocking at the door. Oh, man, I've been waiting to do this one since I started into the multiverse because... oh my Lord, is there some stuff to talk about with that book? So tune in April when we'll be doing that one. Just reread it. Literally, it was the last book that I read before I started reading Wheel of Time and started this channel. So it's still really, really fresh in there, and that was a reread. But lots to talk about with that one. But let's get into some Multiverse Connections, guys. I got to give you a quick little spoiler warning. I don't think that these are anything that are going to ruin these books for you, but they might be books I haven't talked about on the channel yet. So if you want to be 100% clear of anything like this within the multiverse, you might want to go ahead and stop the video here or maybe come back after you've read everything. Again, like I said, I don't think it's going to ruin any of these for you, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about them here. First up is Insomnia. Lois does tell Connie Chung when she meets her that I'm your #1 fan, and it's a very, very clear nod to Annie Wilkes. In it is revealed that, or in this, it is revealed that that Paul lived next to Eddie Kaspbrak as a kid. That is Eddie from It. And that's a nice little tie-in there because, this book takes place in Colorado, which is where The Shining is, not Maine. But there's your nice tie back into Derry, Maine. But, of course, The Shining, we have this character, Andrew, who's telling Annie about how this is one of her patients, about how he's doing this piece on the Overlook Hotel and about going to the remains of the Overlook Hotel and things like that. So, nice little Shining tie-in there. Then we got Rose Madder. And I think Paul's novels, Misery's Journey and Misery's End, Misery's Lover, I can't keep all those separate. Anyway, a couple of Paul Sheldon's Misery novels appear in that, as well as in 4 Past Midnight in the Library Policeman. The character Naomi does check out a few Paul Sheldon books for her mother while she's there. So quite robust within the multiverse for a book like this. You wouldn't think there isn't because you just think, hey, this is just a normal book. I mean, there's like 3 characters, and you don't really talk about very much outside of just the main 2, but he's always kind of, at this point, I feel like after he was really starting to dive deep in the Dark Tower, he was really starting to flex those multiverse muscles, and even if it was just little tiny things like that, he was starting to do them a lot more freely, where he was like, okay, I got to get at least 2 or 3 of these in per book, even if they're just Easter eggs like Paul's Misery book. So guys, have you read Misery? What did you think? Drop in the comments and let me know, and I'll talk to you there.